Yes, so we are going to be reading from the Forgotten Books of Eden. We're continuing the let me back up so I'm not missaying this. The Testaments of the 12 Patriarchs. So we did Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Now we're doing the fifth and sixth sons, right? 1, 2, 3, yep, 6. The fifth and sixth sons, Issachar and Zebulun. Okay, so this is chapter 1, the Testament of Issachar. Okay, so he's the fifth son of Jacob and Leah, chapter 1. Issachar, the fifth son of Jacob and Leah, the sinless child of hire for mandrakes, he appeals for simplicity. The copy of the words of Issachar. For he called his sons and said to them, Hearken, my children, to Issachar your father, give ear to the words of him who is beloved of the Lord. I was born the fifth son to Jacob by way of hire for the mandrakes. For Reuben, my brother, brought in mandrakes from the field, and Rachel met him and took them. And Reuben wept, and at his voice Leah, my mother, came forth. Now these mandrakes were sweet-smelling apples, which were produced in the land of Haran, below a ravine of water. And Rachel said, I will not give them to thee, but they shall be to me instead of children. For the Lord hath despised me, and I have not borne children to Jacob. Now there were 2 apples, and Leah said to Rachel, Let it suffice thee that thou hast taken my husband. Wilt thou take these also? And Rachel said to her, Thou shalt have Jacob this night for the mandrakes of thy son. And Leah said to her, Jacob is mine, for I am the wife of his youth. But Rachel said, Boast not, and vaunt not thyself, for he has espoused me before thee, and for my sake he served our father 14 years. It's true. And had not craft increased on the earth, and the wickedness of men prospered, thou wouldst not now see the face of Jacob. For thou art not his wife, but in craft weren't taken to him in my stead. And my father deceived me and removed me on that night, and did not suffer Jacob to see me. For had I been there, this had not happened to him. Nevertheless, for the mandrakes, I am hiring Jacob to thee for 1 night. And Jacob knew Leah, and she conceived and bare me, and on account of the hire I was called Issachar. Then appeared to Jacob an angel of the Lord, saying, 2 children shall Rachel bear, inasmuch as she hath refused company with her husband, and hath chosen continency. And had not Leah my mother paid the 2 apples for the sake of his company, she would have borne 8 sons. For this reason she bare 6. And Rachel bare the 2, for on account of the mandrakes the Lord visited her. For he knew that for the sake of children she wished to company with Jacob, and not for lust of pleasure. For on the morrow also she again gave up Jacob. Because of the mandrakes, therefore the Lord hearkened to Rachel. For though she desired them, she gat them not, but offered them in the house of the Lord, presenting them to the priest of the Most High, who was at that time. When therefore I grew up, my children, I walked in uprightness of heart, and I became a husbandman for my father and my brethren, and I brought in fruits from the field according to their season. And my father blessed me, for he saw that I walked in rectitude before him, and I was not a busybody in my doings, nor envious and malicious against my neighbor. I never slandered anyone, nor did I censure the life of any man, walking as I did in singleness of eye. Therefore, when I was 35 years old, I took to myself a wife for my labor, wore away my strength, and I never thought upon pleasure with women. But owing to my toil, sleep overcame me. And my father always rejoiced in my rectitude, because I offered through the priest to the Lord all first fruits, then to my father also. And the Lord increased 10,000-fold his benefits in my hands, and also Jacob my father knew that God aided my singleness. For on all the poor and oppressed I bestowed the good things of the earth in the singleness of my heart. And now hearken to me, my children, and walk in singleness of your heart, for I have seen in it all that is well-pleasing to the Lord. The single-minded man coveteth not gold, he overreacheth not his neighbor, he lawneth not after manifold dainties, he delighteth not in varied apparel. He doth not desire to live a long life, but only waiteth for the will of God. And the spirits of deceit have no power against him, for he looketh not on the beauty of women, lest he should pollute his mind with corruption. There is no envy in this thought, in his thoughts. No malicious person maketh his soul to pine away, nor worry with insatiable desire in his mind. For he walketh in singleness of soul, and beholdeth all things in uprightness of heart, shunning eyes made evil through the error of the world, lest he should see the perversion of any of the commandments of the Lord. Keep therefore, my children, the law of God, and get singleness, and walk in guilelessness, not playing the busybody with the business of your neighbor, but love the Lord and your neighbor. Have compassion on the poor and weak. Bow down your back unto husbandry, and toil and labors in all manner of husbandry, offering gifts to the Lord with thanksgiving. For with the first fruits of the earth will the Lord bless you, even as he blessed all the saints from about Abel, even until now.
Because one of the issues
for now, no other portion is given to you than of the fatness of the earth, whose fruits are raised by toil. For our father Jacob blessed me with blessings of the earth and of first fruits. And Levi and Judah were glorified by the Lord, even among the sons of Jacob. For the Lord gave them an inheritance, and to Levi he gave the priesthood, and to Judah the kingdom. And do ye therefore obey them, and walk in the singleness of your father, for unto Gad hath it been given to destroy the troops that are coming upon Israel.
Then there's no charge for it.
Chapter 2. Know ye therefore, my children, that in the last times your sons will forsake singleness, and will cleave unto insatiable desire, and leaving guilelessness will draw near to malice, and forsaking the commandments of the Lord, they will cleave unto Beliar, I don't know. And leaving husbandry, they will follow after their own wicked devices, and they shall be dispersed among the Gentiles, and shall serve their enemies. And do you therefore give these commands to your children, that if they sin, they may the more quickly return to the Lord. For he is merciful and will deliver them, even to bring them back into their land. Behold, therefore, as ye see, I am 126 years old, and am not conscious of committing any sin. Except my wife, I have not known any woman. I never committed fornication by the uplifting of my eyes. I drank not wine to be led astray thereby. I coveted not any desirable thing that was my neighbor's. Guile arose not in my heart. A lie passed not through my lips. If any man were in distress, I joined my sides with his, and I shared my bread with the poor. I wrought godliness, all my days I kept truth. I loved the Lord, likewise also every man with all my heart. So do you also these things, my children, and every spirit of Beliar shall flee from you, and no deed of wicked men shall rule over you. And every wild beast shall ye subdue, since you have with you the God of heaven and earth, and walk with men in singleness of heart. And having said these things, he commanded his sons that they should carry him up to Hebron, and bury him there in the cave with his fathers. And he stretched out his feet and died at a good old age, with every limb sound and with strength unabated. He slept the eternal sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, now we're starting Testament of Zebulun.
Yeah, your transmission has a brain.
The sixth son of Jacob and Leah, chapter 1. Zebulun, the sixth son of Jacob and Leah, the inventor and philanthropist, what he learned as a result of the plot against Joseph. The copy of the words of Zebulun, which he enjoined on his sons before he died in the 114th year of his life, 2 years after the death of Joseph. And he said to them, Hearken to me, ye sons of Zebulun, attend to the words of your father. I, Zebulun, was born a good gift to my parents. For when I was born, my father was increased very exceedingly, both in flocks and herds, when with the straked rods he had his portion. I am not conscious, and I have sinned all my days, save in thought. Nor yet do I remember that I have done any iniquity, except the sin of ignorance which I committed against Joseph, for I covenanted with my brethren not to tell my father what had been done. But I wept in secret many days on account of Joseph, for I feared my brethren, because they had all agreed that if anyone should declare the secret, he should be slain. But when they wished to kill him, I adjured them much with tears not to be guilty of this sin. For Simeon and Gad came against Joseph to kill him, and he said unto them with tears, Pity me, my brethren, have mercy upon the bowels of Jacob our father. Lay not upon me your hands to shed innocent blood, for I have not sinned against you. And if indeed I have sinned, with chastening chastise me, my brethren, but lay upon me your hand for the sake of Jacob our father. And as he spoke these words, wailing as he did so, I was unable to bear his lamentations and began to weep, and my liver was poured out, and all the substance of my bowels was loosened. And I wept with Joseph, and my heart sounded, and the joints of my body trembled, and I was not able to stand. And when Joseph saw me weeping with him, and them coming against him to slay him, he fled behind me, beseeching them. But meanwhile Reuben arose and said, Come, my brethren, let us not slay him, but let us cast him into one of these dry pits, which our fathers digged and found no water. For this cause the Lord forbade the water should rise up in them, in order that Joseph should be preserved. And they did so until they sold him to the Ishmaelites. For in his price I had no share, my children. But Simeon and Gad and 6 other of our brethren took the price of Joseph, and bought sandals for themselves and their wives and their children, saying, We will not eat of it, for it is the price of our brother's blood, but we will assuredly tread it underfoot, because he said that he would be king over us, and so let us see what will become of his dreams. Therefore it is written in the writing of the law of Moses, that whosoever will not raise up seed to his brother, his sandals should be unloosed, and they should spit in his face. And the brethren of Joseph wished not that their brother should live, and the Lord loosened from them the sandal which they wore against Joseph their brother. For when they came into Egypt, they were unloosened by the servants of Joseph outside the gate. And so they made obeisance to Joseph after the fashion of King Pharaoh. And not only did they make obeisance to him, but were spit upon also, falling down before him forthwith. And so they were put to shame before the Egyptians. For after this, the Egyptians heard all the evils that they had done to Joseph. And after he was sold, my brothers sat down to eat and drink. But I, through pity for Joseph, did not eat, but watched the pit, since Judah feared lest Simeon, Dan, and Gad should rush off and slay him. But when they saw that I did not eat, they set me to watch him till he was sold to the Ishmaelites. And when Reuben came and heard that while he was away Joseph had been sold, he rent his garments, and mourning said, How shall I look on the face of my father Jacob? And he took the money and ran after the merchants, but as he failed to find them, he returned grieving. But the merchants had left the broad road and marched through the troglodytes by a short cut. But Reuben was grieved and ate no food that day. Dan therefore came to him and said, Weep not, neither grieve, for we have found what we can say to our father Jacob. Let us slay a kid of the goats, and dip in it the coat of Joseph, and let us send it to Jacob, saying, No, is this the coat of thy son? And they did so, for they stripped off from Joseph his coat when they were selling him, and put upon him the garment of slave. Now Simeon took the coat, and would not give it up, for he wished to rend it with his sword, as he was angry that Joseph lived, and that he had not slain him. Then we all rose up and said unto him, If thou givest not up the coat, we will say to our father that thou alone didst this evil thing in Israel. And so he gave it unto them, and they did even as Dan had said. Chapter 2. He urges human sympathy and understanding of one's fellow men. And now, children, you to keep the commands of the Lord, and to show mercy to your neighbors, and to have compassion towards all, not towards men only, but also towards beasts. For all these things' sake, the Lord blessed me. And when all my brethren were sick, I escaped without sickness. For the Lord knoweth the purposes of each. Have therefore compassion in your hearts, my children, because even as a man doeth to his neighbor, even so also will the Lord do to him. For the sons of my brethren were sickening and were dying. on account of Joseph, because they showed not mercy in their hearts, but my sons were preserved without sickness, as ye know. And when I was in the land of Canaan by the sea coast, I made a catch of fish for Jacob my father. And when many were choked in the sea, I continued unhurt. I was the first to make a boat to sail upon the sea, for the Lord gave me understanding and wisdom therein. And I let down a rudder behind it, and I stretched a sail upon another upright piece of wood in the midst. And I sailed therein along the shores, catching fish for the house of my father until we came to Egypt. And though through compassion I shared my catch with every stranger. And if a man were a stranger or sick or aged, I boiled the fish and dressed them well and offered them to all men, as every man had need, grieving with and having compassion upon them. Wherefore also the Lord satisfied me with abundance of fish when catching fish. For he that shareth with his neighbor receiveth manifold more from the Lord. For 5 years I caught fish and gave thereof to every man whom I saw, and sufficed for all the house of my father. And in the summer I caught fish, and in the winter I kept sheep with my brethren. Now I will declare unto you what I did. I saw a man in distress through nakedness in wintertime, and had compassion upon him, and stole away a garment secretly from my father's house, and gave it to him who was in distress. Do you, therefore, my children, from that which God bestoweth upon you, show compassion and mercy without hesitation to all men, and give to every man with a good heart. And if ye have not the wherewithal to give to him that needeth, have compassion for him in bowels of mercy. I know that my hand found not the wherewithal to give to him that needed, and I walked with him weeping for several furlongs, and my bowels yearned towards him in compassion. Have therefore yourselves also, my children, compassion towards every man with mercy, that the Lord also may have compassion and mercy upon you. Because also in the last days God will send his compassion on the earth, and wheresoever he findeth bowels of mercy, he dwelleth in him. For in the degrees in which a man hath compassion upon his neighbors, in the same degree hath the Lord also upon him. And when we went down into Egypt, Joseph bore no malice against us. To whom taking heed, do ye also, my children, approve yourselves without malice, and love one another, and do not set down in account each one of you evil against his brother. For his breaketh unity, and divideth all kindred, and troubleth the soul, and weareth away the countenance. Observe therefore the waters, and know when they flow together, they sweep along stones, trees, earth, and other things. But if they are divided into many streams, the earth swalloweth them up, and they vanish away. So shall ye also be if ye be divided. Be not ye therefore divided into two heads, for everything which the Lord made hath but one head, and two shoulders, two hands, 2 feet, and all the remaining members. For I have learnt in the writing of my fathers that ye shall be divided in Israel, and ye shall follow 2 kings, and shall work every abomination. And your enemies shall lead you captive, and ye shall be evil and treated among the Gentiles with many infirmities and tribulations. And after these things ye shall remember the Lord and repent, and he shall have mercy upon you, for he is merciful and compassionate. And he setteth not down in account evil against the sons of men, because they are flesh, and are deceived through their own wicked deeds. And after these things shall there arise unto you the Lord himself, the light of righteousness, and ye shall return unto your land. And ye shall see him in Jerusalem for his name's sake. And again, through the wickedness of your works shall ye provoke him to anger. And ye shall be cast away by him unto the time of consummation. And now, my children, grieve, not that I am dying, nor be cast down in that I am coming to my end. For I shall rise again in the midst of you as a ruler in the midst of his sons. And I shall rejoice in the midst of my tribe, as many as shall keep the law of the Lord and the commandments of Zebulun their father. But upon the ungodly shall the Lord bring eternal fire, and destroy them throughout all generations. but I am now hastening away to my rest, as did also my fathers. But do ye fear the Lord our God with all your strength all the days of your life. And when he had said these things, he fell asleep at a good old age. And his sons laid him in a wooden coffin, and afterwards they carried him up and buried him in Hebron with his fathers. Okay, guys, so the next one is going to be Dan. So we will do that next time. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye.